Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something completely fascinating. We are going to explore the parallel journeys of two absolutely monumental figures by looking right into their autobiographies. Specifically, we're talking about Malala Yousafzai's incredibly powerful memoir, I Am Malala, and the first three chapters of Mahatma Gandhi's classic, The Story of My Experiments with Truth. Now, on the surface, you might think a 19th century Indian lawyer and a 21st century Pakistani schoolgirl are just worlds apart. But, as we'll uncover today, their core life lessons, their wildly distinct writing styles, and their shared values of courage and self-discipline, they actually form this amazing, unbroken thread through history. Let's start things off with this brilliant thought from Gandhi. He once reflected that he literally had nothing new to teach the world. Truth and nonviolence, he said, are as old as the hills. He wasn't claiming to have invented some groundbreaking new philosophy. Rather, he believed he was just experimenting with these ancient, universal concepts, just on a massive scale. And really, this single idea perfectly anchors our whole discussion today. It shows us how these timeless virtues can be picked up by anyone in absolutely any era to spark a global movement.
And you know what? We see this playing out right now. Young activists today are literally climbing those exact same ancient hills. From Gandhi's early moral awakenings in British India, all the way to a young Malala raising her voice in the modern Middle East, we see time and time again that the push for peace and human rights isn't boxed in by age or generation. The torch just keeps getting passed.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, the power of one voice. Second, Malala's courage under fire. Third, Gandhi's pursuit of truth. Fourth, comparing their writing styles. And finally, life lessons for today. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The Power of One Voice. Two Paths to Change. Moving right into Section 2. Malala and her incredible courage under fire.
To really get Malala, you have to understand exactly where she comes from. Picture this. It's 1997 in Pakistan's absolutely stunning Swat Valley. Now, local Pashtun customs heavily, and I mean heavily, favored boys. Whenever a daughter was born, villagers would actually offer sympathy to the parents, kind of treating it like a misfortune. But her dad, Ziauddin, an educator and activist himself, completely rejected that. He celebrated her birth with joy. He named her after Malala of Maiwand, this legendary teenage Afghan heroine who fearlessly led her people to victory. And from the time she was tiny, he famously told Malala to be free as a bird. That deeply nurturing, super defiant home environment, that is exactly what planted the seed of her fierce passion for education and equality.
What's really mind-blowing here is the sheer speed of her journey. Think about what you were doing at 11 years old. When the Taliban started taking over the Swat Valley and banned girls from attending school, an 11-year-old Malala didn't just hide. She took massive risks. She started a secret diary for the BBC under the fake name Gul Makai just to document the terror of their regime. As her public profile grew, she refused to back down. So at just 15 years old, a Taliban gunman boarded her school bus and shot her at point-blank range. But, and here's the incredible part, instead of silencing her, that horrific attempt on her life amplified her voice to the entire world. By 17, she became the youngest ever Nobel Peace Prize winner. Just amazing.
This brings us to one of her most powerful realizations. Malala figured out super early on that you don't defeat violence with more violence. You defeat it in the classroom. As she famously put it, one child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world. She fundamentally believes that education is the ultimate weapon to dismantle terrorism and break these long cycles of oppression. And honestly, she proves every single day that nonviolent activism works, even when things seem unimaginably dark.
All right, on to Section 3, Gandhi and the Pursuit of Truth.
So, pivoting back to late 19th century India, we see a totally different kind of courage from Gandhi, one that was intensely focused inward. In the first three chapters of his autobiography, he paints a really surprising picture of himself. He wasn't some flawless saint born fully formed. Actually, he openly admits he was a pretty mediocre student who had crippling stage fright. Instead, his worldview was shaped by these really normal, everyday childhood moments. For instance, he talks about how reading and watching the play Sravana taught him deep selflessness. Then, seeing another play, Harishchandra, totally cemented his lifelong dedication to truth, even if it meant personal suffering. And maybe most poignantly, he's incredibly candid about his arranged child marriage at just 13 years old. He carried a lot of guilt and complex emotions from that, which forced him into this intense, lifelong habit of self-reflection. These were the messy, formative years of a kid just trying to find his moral compass.
Gandhi wasn't born a legend, right? His autobiography is basically a log of his moral experiments. He struggled, he failed, he got scared, just like the rest of us. Like, before he moved thousands of miles away to England for law school, he took these really strict vows to avoid alcohol, women, and meat, mostly just to ease his mother's anxiety. Keeping those vows was hard, but that exact struggle is what forged his willpower. By constantly reflecting and brutally correcting his own mistakes in real time, he developed his core principles: ahimsa, which is nonviolence, and satya, meaning truth. His legendary discipline was a conscious choice he had to make every single day.
Which brings us to Section 4, comparing their writing styles.
When you actually sit down and read their prose side by side, the contrast is super interesting, mostly because of how and when they were writing. Gandhi wrote his autobiography in the 1920s as a series of weekly journal entries. Because of that, his style is incredibly humble and conversational. It literally feels like a guy quietly confessing his flaws to a close friend over tea, focusing heavily on his own spiritual transparency. Now, Malala wrote her modern memoir with a profound sense of urgency. Her book is highly structured, packed with vivid symbolism and intensely outward-looking. She's constantly grounding her own deeply personal story right in the middle of the broader geopolitical realities of the Taliban in Pakistan.
So, what does this all mean for their core messages? Well, for Gandhi, truth, and we're talking truth with a capital T here, wasn't just some objective textbook fact. It was a lived, breathing, everyday spiritual practice that defined his entire life. His writing acts as this quiet invitation. He wants you, the reader, to join him in striving for ethical perfection, while fully acknowledging that personal growth is super slow and requires a ton of patience. On the flip side, Malala uses these incredible, highly relatable metaphors to frame her fight. In one really powerful spot, she affectionately calls her dad a falcon who dared to fly up into the sky where everyone else was too afraid to go. And I love this part. She shares a story about a TV show she watched as a little girl about a boy with a magic pencil who could make things real just by drawing them. She desperately wished for that pencil. Why? So she could draw locks on her door to keep the terrorists out and draw schools for all the girls who were banned from learning. It's just a heartbreakingly beautiful way to connect her cultural heritage with this massive urgent need for safety and justice.
And finally, Section 5, Life Lessons for Today. So having looked at their histories and their words, how do we actually apply this stuff? Look at the big picture. Whether it's an 11-year-old Malala risking her life to speak out, or a young Gandhi internalizing heavy moral lessons from a local stage play, the takeaway is loud and clear. You are literally never too young to foster unity, tolerance, and peace. They totally shatter the illusion that you need a whole lifetime of experience before you can have profound moral clarity.
When we boil it all down, the anatomy of a changemaker comes down to a few core truths. From Malala, we learn that education is total liberation, and that true courage isn't the absence of fear. It's standing up for what's right even when you are absolutely terrified. From Gandhi, we learn that rigorous personal discipline is the bedrock of public resilience. He believed there was a divine spark in everyone, even his fiercest enemies, and showed that to truly transform society, you have to treat opponents with respect so you don't play into the hands of violence. But above all, both of these parallel journeys prove, without a doubt, that every single voice matters.
Neither of these global movements happened by accident. They were built on deliberate, consistent, and sometimes really painful everyday choices toward justice and self-improvement. So I'm going to leave you with this question to think about. How will you use your voice to experiment with truth today? I really hope this explainer has inspired you to blend Malala's unwavering courage with Gandhi's rigorous self-discipline in your own daily life. Thanks for joining me.